morning, good afternoon, and good evening, hockey fans. It is a very spring-like 10 degrees Celsius. We've hit double digits, 49 degrees Fahrenheit, a bright and beautiful Bridgewater, Nova Scotia today. My name is Justin, BridgewatersFinest on YouTube, Blockbuster_Guy on Twitter, and welcome to the Tuesday, May 10th edition of the Bridgewater's Finest 2016 NHL Playoffs podcast. We had a pair of really good games last night, two teams with a chance to end their series and move on to the Western Conference Final. Neither one of those teams could get it done. We're going to start in St. Louis, where the Dallas Stars were visiting the Blues, Game 6 of their series. St. Louis leading this series 3-2, but Dallas comes up big, the beneficiary of a very good early start in this game. They chase Brian Elliott. They win the game 3-2. Shots in this game were 37-14, however, for the hometown Blues. And actually, both of these games had shot totals that were really dominant for one side. This series now tied up 3 games apiece. They're heading to Game 7 back in Dallas. The opportunities in this game early on were few and far between. There were not a lot of great scoring opportunities for either team. It does soon open up, and Dallas takes prime advantage of that, as I mentioned. 4:53 into the first period, Dallas is on the board. It's Mattias Janmark, his second goal of these playoffs. Valeri Nichushkin drawing what I believe is his first point of these playoffs. It's a blocked shot by Janmark, and then he just takes off up the ice. Nichushkin feeds him on the lead pass. He's in on a partial breakaway. He sends the wrister home. It beats Brian Elliott. I know he'd like to have that one back. It is 1-0 Dallas. And then just 20 seconds later, Dallas does it again. 5:13 into the first period. Dallas now doubles their lead, and it's 2-0. It's Vernon Fiddler, the birthday boy, his first goal of these playoffs. Colton Sevier and Chris Russell drawing the assists on this one. There's a turnover at the line. The pass is just centered out front from Sevier, and Fiddler with just a beautiful tip. I mean, you couldn't have planned it better than that. Janmark and Fiddler make it 2-0 Dallas early on the road. St. Louis now starts to throw the body a little bit. They're down 2. They got to make a change. They start playing more physically. It does generate some opportunities for them. Kari Lehtinen coming up with a big save on Jori Lehtera at the side of the net. He's jamming away at it. Lehtinen keeps the puck out. The Blues, in fact, generate 7 straight attempts throughout the middle of the first period. 4 of those shots finding their way in on goal. Kari Lehtinen equal to the task on all of them. Another opportunity here for St. Louis as Jason Demers takes a high sticking penalty on Jori Lehtera, who was all over the ice in this game. St. Louis misses all 3 of their power play shot attempts. They all go wide or above the net. Not good enough, not good for the Blues, especially down 2 goals. Then it turns around the other way. Troy Brouwer gets called for a cross-checking penalty on Radek Faksa, and as far as opportunities go, Dallas only needs 1. 16:49 into the first period. Dallas on the power play. It's Jason Spezza, his 5th goal of these playoffs. He's been silent for a little while now, maybe starting to pick his play up a little bit. Colton Sevier with his 2nd point of this game, and Jamie Benn drawing the other assist. The Stars just rush into the Blues zone. A beautiful little toe drag from Spezza to get around one of the Blues defenders, and then just a seeing eye wrist shot, and it beats Brian Elliott. It's a goal scorer's goal right there for a playoff performer in Jason Spezza. It is 3-0 Dallas, and that is the end of Brian Elliott's day. He is pulled for Jake Allen, the first time we see Jake Allen in these playoffs. Elliott visibly frustrated. He did not return to this game, just sitting on the bench, just shaking his head. Definitely the Stars got the better of him on this night. The Blues are definitely remaining the more physical of the 2 teams here through the second period, throwing the body with more consistency than was Dallas. Kari Lehtinen comes up with a trio of very impressive saves in the early second period, including a snapshot from the most dangerous, arguably the most dangerous sniper on either team, Vladimir Tarasenko. Jake Allen, on the other end, comes into the game and faces 0 shots for nearly 10 minutes of game time. That's, half a period, and he faces absolutely nothing, but he has to come up big. Jason Spezza with a tip off of a point shot. That is stopped by Jake Allen. Jake Allen, in fact, since you know the end score of the game, was perfect throughout the rest of the game, so he came in and played very well for them in relief. Kari Lehtinen on the other end, denying Patrick Berglund twice back-to-back, a pair of big saves there, but the St. Louis pressure continues. They keep it up, and they get on the board with that never-give-up attitude. 7:29 into the second period, St. Louis is on the board, cuts the deficit to just 2. It's Alexander Steen, his 4th goal of the playoffs. Bortuzzo and Tarasenko draw the assists on that one. Just a huge rebound off the Bortuzzo shot from the boards. Really wasn't a great angle on the Bortuzzo shot, but it does what it needs to do, which has generated a big rebound. Alex Steen, Johnny on the spot at the side of the net. He scores. St. Louis now down 3-1. And the pressure does not quit. St. Louis just keeps going. Dallas really, for the rest of this game, was back on their heels trying to protect this lead. Not the greatest strategy, I would say. You got to keep at least a little bit of aggressiveness. I didn't see a ton of aggressiveness out of Dallas after they went up 3-0. You do have a minor Dallas push here in the late second period. 3 shots on goal, and St. Louis, and the only reason I even really mention this is it's in this sequence that St. Louis records their only 2 blocks of this hockey game. You gotta lay out a little bit more than that, and the Western Conference teams are especially good at it, but not on this night. St. Louis really was not focused on getting down in those shooting lanes. Now granted, I mean, Dallas only had 14 shots that actually made it through to the goal, so I understand there weren't a lot of shots, but you got to get down there. You got to make a bit more of an effort than that. So Dallas did have a little minor push there. No damage really on that whatsoever. Then Russell, taking a delay of game penalty early third period, puts St. Louis on the power play. 3 more shots on goal, all of them stopped by Kari Lehtinen. And you might ask, with all this pressure, what's Dallas actually doing? Well, I mean, they're winning some face-offs. They're doing that, but they're not really generating anything off of those face-off wins. The St. Louis pressure is just consistent here throughout the end of the second period, throughout the middle of the third period, and 8:59 into the third period, St. Louis pulls it within 1. It's Patrick Berglund, his 3rd goal of these playoffs. He finally gets one through on Lehtinen on this night. Laterra and Backes drawing the assist. Laterra gets the puck from Backes at kind of the side of the net, and just this beautiful little tweener, like just between the legs pass, between the feet pass really, is he's facing away from the play. It was great. So this little like drop pass to Patrick Berglund, and Berglund just pushes it home. St. Louis is now within 1 at home, and the crowd is way into this one. Play starts to even out a little bit more after the 3-2 goal. St. Louis still has the momentum. They're still getting the better of the play. Kari Lehtinen comes up with a huge, actually a bunch of huge saves. A wrist shot from the point from Colton Parayko, a backhand opportunity from Jaden Schwartz, a slap shot from David Backes. This was arguably Kari Lehtinen's best game, certainly best game of this series, if not his best game of the playoffs. I mean, 35 saves, that's a huge effort for a guy that, as I've been mentioning before, can't have the most confidence right now, given that his coach has really flip-flopped on the goaltending. Patrick Eaves, who slotted back into this lineup for Game 6 for Dallas. He is sprung on a breakaway here in the late third. He's got an opportunity to ice this thing. Boom, he beats Jake Allen, but he does not beat the post. He rings it off the iron. Dallas was that close to sealing this thing. St. Louis with a final huge flurry in the last 2 minutes of the game. 7 shot attempts. Kari Lehtinen comes up with 2 more huge saves on Kevin Shattenkirk and Jaden Schwartz, and that ices the game. Dallas wins it 3-2. They win Game 6 on the road, forcing a Game 7 back in Dallas in just a couple of days. We head to Nashville now, where the visiting Sharks had the same opportunity that the hometown Blues had earlier in the day, and that is to end their series and go to the Western Conference Final. Game 6 of this series, they lead the series 3-2, but it's Nashville on home ice, Smashville in full effect. They win this game 4-3. That score is not indicative of how not as close as a 1-goal game that goes to overtime should be. The shots in this game were 32-18 for Nashville. Martin Jones played another really good game despite the fact that he gave up 4 goals ultimately. But, he faced 32 shots, and Pekka Rinne only had 18 thrown at him. I mean, he gave up 3 in those 18. So Rinne did not look fantastic in this game. He did enough for his team to win. This series now tied up 3 games apiece. Game 7 goes back to San Jose, but Nashville's home crowd in full effect. As I mentioned on the Board Hockey Fan Facebook page, where a Predators fan was kind of talking about, actually no, it was a non-Predators fan who started the thread, but in any case, the conversation was about that Nashville crowd, and I just said, it's the hockey equivalent of a soccer crowd. It's fantastic, and I'm so happy that in a non-traditional hockey market like Nashville, that team can now be successful, and their crowd, their fan base is so into it, and that is a success story in terms of NHL expansion into a non-traditional market. Big success story there for Nashville, and a big success for Nashville in this game. They opened this game up with the same fire that they ended Game 4 with in front of that crowd that is just an unreal crowd. San Jose, they survived that opening thrust, and that's a big thing. You got to survive that first 4 or 5 minutes of the home team really feeding off the home crowd energy. They do that. The play starts to even out. Nashville probably got a slight edge in the play in terms of chances and a little bit in terms of physicality. The Sharks are actually missing more shot attempts than they're getting on net. Nashville doing a decent job of getting down, blocking some shots early, but San Jose is just plain missing the net, and that's something that you gotta clean up, especially when you got a chance to eliminate your opponent. But as they say, persistence pays off. 9 minutes and 55 seconds into the first period, San Jose gets on the board. It's Chris Tierney. It's his second goal of these playoffs. Vlasic and Hurdle drawing the assists on that one. It was a point wrist shot from Vlasic that was tipped by Tierney way out there, basically in the slot. It was quite a ways away from the net. It was a nice tip. They took a look at it to make sure it wasn't a high stick. They were deemed that it was not a high stick. Tierney with an excellent tip, looking very David Backes-like with that tip, and Tierney gets San Jose on the board. It's 1-0. Nashville turns around. They get a couple of chances off of that goal, but literally the next time down the ice for the Sharks, they take a 2-goal lead. 11:51 into the first period. Just under 2 minutes later, San Jose scores, and it's Chris Tierney again. His second goal of the game, third goal of these playoffs. Matt Nieto and Brent Burns draw the assists on that one. That is Burns' 10th assist of these playoffs. He is having himself an unbelievable campaign. This was just back and forth. It was San Jose would throw one shot on Rinne from one side of the ice, and then the puck would bounce over on a rebound. They'd fire another shot from the other side, and then third time was the charm for Chris Tierney, and Pekka Rinne had no idea where that puck was at all. He thought maybe he was bumped a little bit. That turned out he was not. So, hey, that's a goal. Chris Tierney will take them any way they come. Chris Tierney scores. San Jose is up 2-0. And speaking of back and forth, that's basically the way that this game would turn out. There were chances on both sides, and Nashville makes good on, just is the first team to make good on one. 15:27 into the first period, Nashville has cut the lead to just 1. It's Roman Josi, surprisingly his first goal of these playoffs, unassisted. There's a turnover at the line. The Predators just crash the net. Josi throws a backhander towards Martin Jones, and it takes this really fortuitous bounce for the Predators, obviously. The puck just pops up in the air, and it ends up over Martin Jones, behind him. It's a goal. Roman Josi credited for his first of the playoffs, as I mentioned, and Nashville is back within 1. Head to the late first period now. Obviously, both teams are trying to press late to take the momentum into the second. Martin Jones makes a couple of big saves here on Ryan Johansen and Shea Weber. That's some big guns for Nashville. Martin Jones coming up with saves on them. Late in the period, Marc-Edouard Vlasic and Craig Smith take some offsetting penalties here. We got a little bit of 4-on-4 hockey into the second period. And during that 4-on-4, the Predators connect. Minute 25 into the second period. It is Ryan Johansen, his 4th goal of these playoffs for Nashville. Ryan Ellis drawing the only assist on that one. And Johansen really just takes this thing 1-on-3 against the Sharks. Just takes it to the middle of three players, dekes it to the backhand, and he just puts it home. I mean, it was a goal scorer's goal. Just take the puck to the net. He went 1-on-3 in the middle of three defenders, and boom, he scores on the backhand. Nashville has tied this game. To this point in the game, the ice has definitely tilted in Nashville's favor off of their physical play. Nashville generating 6 consecutive hits. They definitely have taken the edge in terms of physicality. Martin Jones comes up with a big save on Colin Wilson generated off of that physicality. The Sharks, to this point in the second period, are 8-1 in the face-off dot, so they are definitely owning the face-offs, but Nashville is still generating more off of their opportunities. As a matter of fact, through to the end of the second period, the Predators outchanced the Sharks 12-1 from the point of that goal at a minute 25 through until the end of the period. They outchanced them 12-1. That's not close. The third period opens up here with physical play. Joe Pavelski, unfortunately, takes a hooking penalty on Craig Smith. No damage on that Nashville power play. The Sharks are starting to lay out to block some shots here. Nashville continuing their push. However, that is killed by a Salomaki high stick against Martin Jones. So the high sticking penalty against the goaltender. The Sharks would make them pay on the power play. 10:04 into the third period. San Jose on the power play. It's Logan Couture, his 6th goal of these playoffs. Brent Burns and Joe Thornton. So it's the big guys again for San Jose getting it done. They draw the assists. San Jose cycling the puck around. Pekka Rinne initiates contact with, I believe it was Joe Pavelski out front, and then he kind of loses track of the puck and he's kind of diving around to find it. Couture wrists it home. He doesn't like the fact that that is going to count as a goal, but you know what? Too bad, so sad. That is going to count. San Jose is up 3-2. Pekka Rinne shortly afterwards has to come up with a big save on a Patrick Marleau backhander. That could have broken the game open right there. Rinne with the big save. Nashville turns around. They take it back down the ice. And 12:44 into the third period, just 2.5 minutes later, Nashville ties the game again. It's Colin Wilson. His 5th goal of these playoffs. 5 goals for Colin Wilson. He's having himself a heck of a playoff campaign. James Neal and Mike Ribeiro draw the assists on that play. It was a wide out tic-tac-toe. Like Ribeiro's got the puck on one side of the ice. He goes cross ice to James Neal, who then goes back cross ice to Colin Wilson, wide open. Boom, he scores. Nashville's going nuts. The game is tied. And for the rest of regulation, so from 12:44 until the end of the third period, Nashville dominates this game. 18-1 were the shot attempts for Nashville for the rest of regulation. 18 shot attempts in just 7 minutes and 16 seconds. Holy crap. And 18-1 the advantage for Nashville over San Jose. Registered shots were 7-1 for the Predators. Only a little bit of physicality really for the rest of the regulation. Nashville out-hitting San Jose 5-1. And it's the skill game that takes over in overtime. Physicality almost completely dries up. It's all skill on skill. One shot to a finish, and it's the hometown Preds that get it done. 2:03 into the overtime period. Nashville scores to win the game. It's Arvidsson with his first career playoff goal. Salomaki and Rinne come up with the assists on that play. Just Nashville gets it in transition. It was a weird, looked like a very innocent play, but they get it in transition. Arvidsson beats a couple of San Jose defenders. He's got a guy on him and just sort of floats a backhand, not floats, but shoots a backhand towards the net, and it just plain beats Martin Jones. I don't know if he wasn't expecting it to come from there, wasn't expecting it to end up where it was. I have no idea. In any case, that's the game right there. Victor Arvidsson wins it for Nashville. The Predators force a Game 7 back in San Jose, again, in just a couple of days. Couple of news and notes here from around the league, folks, before we get into previewing our only game action for this evening. The Ottawa Senators, who just a few days ago hired Guy Boucher as their head coach. Actually, it might have even just been yesterday or a couple of days ago. They hired Guy Boucher to be their new head coach. They have now also hired Marc Crawford to be an assistant coach. He returns, as we talked about him a little bit before, he returns from, I believe it was Switzerland, so he is back in the NHL behind an NHL bench as an assistant. Guy Boucher quoted as saying, "I promised myself next time I was coaching, I would have an ex-NHL coach at my side." He has done that with Marc Crawford. Crawford's role on the coaching staff is to be determined, but that's a good sign. That's a real good sign for Ottawa. You hire a Stanley Cup winning coach to be on your coaching staff. That can only mean good things. We also turn to Edmonton, where Oilers general manager Peter Chiarelli is basically openly taking offers on the 4th overall draft pick in the upcoming NHL entry draft. He has already spoken, he says, to 4 or 5 different teams. One of the rumored teams he is talking to are the Montreal Canadiens about possibly moving up to 4th overall to take Pierre-Luc Dubois from Cape Breton. That is just a rumor at this point, but that's what I've heard. So Montreal, one of the rumored teams to be talking to Edmonton, but they've had conversations apparently with 4 or 5 different teams about the 4th overall pick. Edmonton was very invested in getting a top 3 overall pick. They did not do that. They fell to 4th, so they're really shopping that 4th overall pick. Okay, folks, as I mentioned, only one game in NHL action this evening. It is the Washington Capitals visiting the Pittsburgh Penguins, Game 6 of their series, their Eastern Conference semi. Pittsburgh leads this series 3-2. Washington stayed in the series with a 3-1 win on home ice in Game 5. Game gets underway at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It's available on CBC in Canada as well as NBCSN in the United States. Braden Holtby, Matt Murray, that's going to be your goaltending matchup. For the first time in quite a while, really since the first round, Matt Murray may be a bit of a question mark. He did not have a good Game 5, gave up 3 goals on just 19 shots. There were talks that maybe Marc-Andre Fleury might be coming in to play this game. I believe Mike Sullivan has come out and said it is going to be Matt Murray. They're going to stick with the young guy, the guy that really brought them here in these playoffs when Fleury went down with his concussion, so they're going to stick with Matt Murray. On Washington's side, Brooks Orpik ready to return to the Washington lineup tonight after serving his 3-game suspension for the hit on Olli Mata, who may also return tonight. He's a game-time decision. I think the Penguins need him. They need that full defensive complement against Washington. But Orpik ready to return after his 3-game suspension, and he's coming back to a team that's got momentum. Undeniable momentum. A huge win in Game 5 to stay alive in this series. They're getting one of their better defensemen back. Washington has taken the momentum in this series. Don't kid yourself. Pittsburgh, however, is 4-1 at home in these playoffs. They need to ride that wave of hometown momentum. They need to take it to Washington immediately in this game and keep them down. I like the Pens to end the series tonight. I understand that Washington's got the momentum. It's just a feeling that I have. I think Crosby on home ice is going to come up huge. I only like Pittsburgh to win this game by a score of 2-1. Hell, I'll be bold. Crosby gets both of those goals. Pittsburgh wins 2-1. Crosby scores both goals. You heard it here first, and if I'm wrong, feel free to make fun of me. I like Pittsburgh to win the game tonight, end their series in 6 games, and go on to the Eastern Conference Final. All right, folks, that is going to do it for your Tuesday, May 10th edition of the Bridgewater's Finest 2016 NHL Playoffs podcast. I think I might have seen maybe a little bit of audio crackling at one point in the podcast as I pay close attention to my audio levels here. So if that was an issue, I apologize. I will try to take as much out of it as I possibly can. If it didn't happen and it was all my imagination, well, more power to me, I guess. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_Guy on Twitter. I'm still working to try to figure out the issues that I'm having with trying to bring in guests who are not in-house with me. So we're still trying to figure that out. Hopefully we have that sorted out in the coming days. I believe we have a guest that's going to be showing up and doing an in-house appearance on the podcast, so that'll be interesting. So tune in for that. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Hope you enjoyed tonight's game. We will see you again on Wednesday.